Hi, I'm Paul Camillos from Shooting the Breeze podcast. Join the STB crew for conversations and stories around women's hoops and women in hoops, inspiring players, amazing coaches, and the legends behind the scenes. It's our 7th season. Drop us a like and review, and make sure to subscribe for early access and other bonus content.
I want to create a framework and structure, and I want to guide and empower athletes through this. And this is what I believe should be a normal part of being an athlete is you go to the gym to get stronger, you go running to get fitter. What do you do to work on your mindset to help with what you're dealing with? There's going to be the ups and downs in sport, but also just to kind of find your potential and unleash that and bring that out a little bit more.
Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. I'm Paul Camillos, and today I'm being joined by Britt Smart and Nat Burton. Both Britt and Nat have developed their own businesses, Britt with Britt Smart Basketball and Nat with Enriched Athletes. Just before we get into this pod, I want to say congratulations to Britt on, not so new, addition to the family. Now let's just get a little bit of rundown what's been happening, because it's been a while since we last talked to each other.
Oh, I know. Lots has changed. I went from playing basketball year-round to not playing at all, but still being up in the middle of the night stressing, but it's more of feeding and taking care of a baby, a ball of flesh, rather than a physical basketball. So that's what's changed in the last year and a half. And I do trade work outside. I'm installing sprinklers. That came from nowhere. But enjoy being out in the open and the fresh air and all that. So I'm now part mom, part tradie.
That's a bit of a career change there. And Nat, I think it's been about 3 years since we last had you on the show, and you were just starting your whole mindset coaching journey. So do you want to fill us in on what's happened in between time before we really get into talking about things in detail?
Yeah, a bunch of stuff that has been going on, but always really amazing new ideas are coming through and new opportunities. So I am still playing in NBL1, and I finished up coaching in the WNBL. I didn't coach last season for the Lynx, but the business side of things has taken off with a lot of one-on-one mentoring, working with a bunch of teams, still getting into schools, and actually starting some holistic, all-encompassing opportunities for athletes to work on their physical skills, but also the mindset side of things. And now stepping into non-athletes, as I like to call them, normal people, and discovering how I can support their mindsets, and with all the same stuff that I work with the athletes, but just tailoring it for corporate and non-athletes. So that's really exciting.
So how have you been finding dealing with the normal people compared to athletes? Because, athletes by nature tend to have a certain baseline approach to life because of the competitiveness, the environments that they're in. Whereas when you step out of that, you've got a much wider scope of personalities and people to deal with.
Yeah, I think though that we're all the same, and sport is an amazing metaphor for life. It's just, it kind of you're exposed on the basketball court, or your failures are there for everyone to see, or you might get direct feedback as to how your mistake made us lose the game, for example. And so I think that's just exemplified in sport, but that normal people also make mistakes and also fail and deal with exposure and all those types of things. So it's not actually that different. It's just how good I can relate to people using that sport as the vehicle, and whether they're open to hearing that. But really, we all struggle with self-doubt. We all struggle with confidence. We all are performing in one way or another. So it's actually all very similar.
And for people who haven't followed your journey and don't understand what your business is about, do you want to just give us a short potted history of the business and how you started it?
Yeah, it is born from what I didn't have, or what I didn't realize when I was playing at all levels. So I was someone who really struggled with my self-doubt and my confidence and, imposter syndrome and all of those types of things. I achieved amazing things. I went to an Olympics, but when I suddenly started to develop my own awareness of how my own thoughts were kind of holding me back and what was actually driving me, and realizing that was all based off these limiting beliefs about myself, or all really fear-based, I saw that, yes, I'd achieved things, but I wasn't particularly happy achieving them. And I hadn't done it to the best of my ability, I don't think. That there was something like untapped. And so that started my own journey of self-awareness. And really, it was quite selfish, like, how do I learn how to get confidence, or how do I learn how to deal with feeling embarrassed to call myself an Olympian? And as I learnt those things, I realized that every single human being on this planet is dealing with those same things. We're just not talking about it. I think we're doing a better job. But then the piece comes in of the how to. Like, how many times coaches told me to just be more confident, just be aggressive, go on, have some mongrel. And I'm like, cool, yeah, how? Like, we don't have that how to. So that's what I was like, I can help with that. Like, I want to create a framework and structure, and I want to guide and empower athletes through this. And this is what I believe should be a normal part of being an athlete: is you go to the gym to get stronger, you go running to get fitter. What do you do to work on your mindset to help with what you're dealing with? There's going to be the ups and downs in sport, but also just to kind of like, find your potential and unleash that and bring that out a little bit more. So that's how it started, I guess. And it started in COVID, as a lot of amazing things have actually started in COVID. Silver lining, right? But yeah, from there, I just started working one-on-one with athletes, mentoring them, guiding them, supporting them through their own journeys, and running group workshops because I want to reach as many athletes as possible, working with teams, working in schools, just helping. I call it mindset training, but helping them deepen their awareness of their own thoughts and behaviors and actions, and helping them see, are they aligned to what you actually want, or are they aligned to kind of what you're afraid of happening? And off we go. It takes a lot of different shapes, and I'm totally open to helping anyone and everyone in any way that I think could work for them, which is the beautiful thing about it.
So, Britt, I'm curious, out of that, were any of those comments, statements, things that you could relate to?
Yeah, every single one of them. You can still feel that now, just as, a trainee or parent or, coach myself. Like, it's the same, like she was talking about with corporate. It's just the ability to acquire the skill of being vulnerable. It doesn't even matter like what, career you're in. If you have an open mind and heart to what Nat is bringing forward, and let's say I'm in one of those meetings, no matter what my career, you have the ability to kind of be vulnerable and put yourself out there, then you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And you're going to learn, like what she's saying, the how to get confident. You can't just be confident. But obviously that really hits me, so to speak. But I was going to ask Nat really quickly, you talk about gaining confidence. Did you always not have confidence on the court? Was that kind of just something that maybe, we all kind of tilt certain ways, like on the timeline or the pendulum, whatever, one way or another, just naturally? Some people just naturally think they can do anything and everything. Like 15-month-year-olds, like my son, he can do anything and everything right now. That's something you always had to work on the court and off the court. Were you always kind of that way, or was it moments of getting beat down or a certain moment that took that away from you?
I've thought about it a lot, and I am fully aware of, I have this within me. My thing is that I'm not good enough. And I'm so totally comfortable talking about that. I forget sometimes we're not that open as a society about saying that, but I'm okay with that. Like, I could look back at my life and find all the ways that I just always felt like others were up here and I was here. Like, and I would put myself here. And it's so bizarre to me because when I remove myself from the equation and I look at Nat Burton, and what I've done, and it's incredible. Like, what I've achieved I've achieved a lot of things, but throughout all of that, I didn't see that. It wasn't fulfilling because I was chasing that not good enoughness. I was chasing it outside of myself. So yes, is the short answer to your question. I never felt like confident enough, and I always put others above. And it was just this thing that I just couldn't quite get. I might score a lot of points. I might make a team, but it was like, yeah, cool. That feels good for a brief amount of time. But then it became a different beast in my mind, when in reality it was all the same thing: not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. So I had to realize, like, I'm attaching so much of myself to whether I can put a stupid ball through a stupid hole, or what I think other people are saying about me, which is entirely made up. And then realize, what do I want? Like, what's fulfilling for me? What's driving me? Why am I doing this? And if it's not worth it, like it is time to stop and move away from it.
So I hear you say that, and I go through this whole "it does not compute" cycle myself, because having seen you play, having seen you on the court, having seen you do all the things that you do, between what you've just said and what I was seeing and what I was believing, and that's not to discount your feelings, but it's just like I look at it and go, "There's no way I could ever do what you did."
I think that's the trap we fall into, though, like, because I was doing that to other people within my team, even. Like, I was saying, oh, she's so confident. Like, why did she just shoot that? She just missed the shot before. Why would she shoot again? And it's like, everyone's got their own thing, right? Everyone's got their own struggle. And I think when we don't realize that and we put people above us and all of that perspective, we are very disempowered. I will also say, you've probably seen me play. Anything after Rio is a different version of me. So Rio was really a tipping point for me, and what happened after that. So when I played my last WNBL season with Sydney, that was probably one of the most freeing and fun versions of me playing basketball I've ever been. So maybe you saw a little bit of that as well.
Now you run a business where you are the voice of Enriched Athletes. You are the face of it. To me now, what was your how-to get the confidence to think that people would listen? Or I know people would listen because of your resume, but for you to have the confidence to back yourself to think, I'm going to put all of this into a business and have the confidence and put all my resources in it, that people are going to listen, that I'm going to get clientele, like a business, and live off of this to a certain degree, but also to help people. I know why you're doing it, but for you to believe in yourself that your words are powerful, and why would they listen to Nat Burton's words? How did you gain that back then?
Yeah, so I was mostly afraid of my peers. So I was afraid of that to begin with. Like, what right do I have to talk to other people about this stuff? Like, what's this player in the WNBL going to think? Whatever. But you just said it then. It's like, that why is what changed. Because when I was worried about those types of things, that I'm there for me, and I'm there for an egoic me, and I'm there to make myself feel good about my career and feel good because people are listening and pay me money or whatever that is. And then if I'm focused on that, then I am too afraid to post on social media. I'm too afraid to speak up. I'm too afraid to go for a new idea or reach out to someone, because then if I don't get that, I'm rejected. But if I change the why, then it moves to, well, what am I really here for? I'm here to serve athletes, to support them, to empower them. And if I focus on that now, then it doesn't matter how many likes my posts get on social media, because it's not about that. It's not about me. It's about, maybe I reach an athlete, or this is clearly aligned with the vision I have for the business. And so being motivated by that, it's that intention, it's that why, how am I showing up? I had to get clear on that. And that was a lot of hard looking at myself. And I've had some amazing support from people around me to help me with that. But yeah, that's probably it, is that getting centered or focused on what's driving every decision I take for the business.
And I'm not sure how many people are aware of this. Just prepping for this podcast, one of the things I did was I went back and had a look at your bio on your website. And I don't think people realize how accomplished you are outside the basketball sporting world in terms of what you've achieved. I mean, you've studied finance, you've studied in so many other areas, which are obviously supporting your business. I'm kind of curious how you found the process of not only being an athlete, but also studying all these subjects that are outside the traditional athletic realm.
Yeah, I think my mum she didn't want me to go to college in America because she was worried about the education I would get. So I've always had that kind of voice.
Hey.
So basketball has never been my everything. And for a while, I thought that was bad. And I thought, are you made for this? Because I didn't dream of going to college. I didn't dream of becoming an Opal when I was a little girl. I wanted to go to the Olympics, but I didn't know it would be in basketball. And I didn't really have that in my life. But what that helped me do was understand that there's more to me than just basketball. And so it was always important that I had these other things in my life, that I had this other study, if I'm curious about psychology, I did a free online psychology course. If this is an opportunity to learn a quick one day, like how to sit on a not-for-profit board, you know what, I'm kind of interested in that. I'm going to do that. So I said yes to a lot of things outside of basketball because I knew basketball wouldn't be here forever. It wasn't my everything. And like now that I'm doing what I'm doing now, I see that I've never felt this passionate about anything in my life. Like, I did not feel this passionate about basketball. I love basketball and I was driven and dedicated and I wanted to achieve in it. And I now see that I had to go through all of that in order to do what I'm doing now. But I could work all day, every day on the business and totally be okay with it just because of this joy that I have from doing it. I think that's probably why I've got all my life. I think my fingers in a lot of different pies.
And to both of you, I'm kind of curious to get your feedback on how you feel, the WNBL and other countries that you've played in have dealt with the issues around physical and mental health, and what do they do well and what could they do better? So I'll throw to you first, Nat.
I think we don't do anything. And we don't. I think we talk a great talk. And we talk a lot about, mental health is important, and understand that bringing awareness to it and that talking piece is probably the first step. And we are doing that now. But it can't just be talk, and it still is. Until I see a club that devotes time and resources to implementing a mindset coach or a sports psych that's specific for this team, that is at training sessions, that is fully involved in this team, then if I see that happening more and more, then I'll think that we're actually doing something. But until then, I understand that there are some clubs who have sports psychs and trying to integrate them, but I'm not seeing enough of it. And it doesn't make sense to me because we have strength and conditioning coaches, and I feel like this is the next frontier, is finding a way to embed a mindset support within a team so that it is a normal part of being an athlete from day dot all the way through to professional.
And what about you, Britt?
I agree. I think here it's just been a lot of smoke and mirrors just to say that they offer this or that they have it on there, but I don't know. Even if, I guess it can be genuine, but it's just not enough. The resources aren't enough, like Nat said, to be involved in everything and be at trainings and all that. And we did some team sessions and stuff at Canberra. I think they were probably the best ones that had someone involved more often, but almost not even more important, but I think the coaching staff in the club, like the higher ups, they almost need to be going through, like Nat, you offer mindset training for athletes, but also coaches and parents. And I was like, that's so good, because you have to have the coaches bought into this. If they think it's silly or a waste of time, then you don't want to get invested in it. And then also it's just sort of like, for me, I also am put off by having one psychologist for everyone. We go talk to the same person.
Yeah.
That I understand there has to be some interaction so they understand the dynamic of the team, like one or two people, so that the coach has one person to maybe filter through, talk through, but just for privacy things, but also like just a trust factor. Maybe that's me. Maybe I'm not being vulnerable enough. I don't know. But yeah, all that to say, I'm not even sure what my answer is, except that there's something needs to be more or different, or set up a framework like you're doing that, and it can be moldable to whatever level you're at, men or women, corporate, and be able to adjust. But that means you have to have that same company working through that whole time to be able to learn the actual team and people you're working with.
Yeah, there's a way to integrate it. And I don't have the answer. I've tried it. I went to America a couple of years ago as a research trip, and I reached out to every contact I have in the NBA and college. And I immersed myself in these environments, and no one's got it right yet. But there are certainly some people who are trying to find a way to bring someone in who, like, similar to what you said, Britt, like, it can't be one person for everyone. That's not reality. But also, is this person separate from a psychologist? Is it an athlete wellbeing specialist? like I just did my cert for an elite athlete wellbeing, and it's really interesting how the framework can kind of embed itself into an organization. But you're right, unless the head coach is driving this and higher than that, then it's going to fall flat, because you can tell what a coach values by how much time they're giving to it. And also, the coaches that I've had a great relationship with, there's nothing I wouldn't do for them. And so I'm listening to them and I'm engaged with them. And if they're saying, you know what, like we need to step away, we need to have a mindset session or whatever, I'm going to put value on that mindset session, because my head coach is like showing me that that's the way forward. So I don't know what the answer is, what it needs to look like, but we have to find a way to embed it more within the structure already.
I'm going to throw this question to both of you, and that is, do you think that part of the resistance to accepting these concepts comes from the fact that a lot of people who are at the more senior levels of basketball generally have basically worked their way up from, you know, I was a player, I might have been a referee or assisted at an association, and then I kind of was elected to the board of the association. I've kind of worked my way up, or I've gotten involved in clubs or whatever it may be, and that they just don't get it. You think that's got something that contributes to this?
I think there is a part of that still there. I think I look at some of the boards in basketball WA, various organisations, and the athlete representation on those boards is non-existent. So I don't understand how we're making decisions that directly affect athletes, because that's why we run a basketball club, right? Without that voice on a board. So that's certainly one part of it. Yeah.
So if you put an athlete on a board, see, I just don't trust people sometimes. So maybe it's me, because if I say something that goes against the coach, or they're not into it, there goes my playing time. Or there's some bitterness and maybe not like
so
me
you
as
need
much.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's when we have a culture without trust. And so the beautiful thing, it's so rare, but the beautiful thing is when you have someone in your organization who has the relationship with the coach, and the coach is open and they've developed this relationship, who can go to the coach and say, so-and-so can't train today. You just got to trust me. She can't train today. And the coach needs to say, okay, not, oh, what's wrong with her? Why she having, what's going on? Just understanding that this person, this wellbeing specialist, whatever title you want to give it, has kind of vetted it and understands that this is in the best interest of the athlete. Because you're right, Britt, like, of course, who's going to go?
I was going to say, having that third party is great, but then you run the fear of she's not training, so she won't start. That's what people see in America. There's a different culture, and it's good that you played in the state. That's not like that in America. I feel like it's not going to be held against them, to where I don't know, or maybe it's just my mindset, because I went to college and my prime was Europe years, and my twilight years was probably Australia. But there's something, and Europe's just a different animal, as you know, because of the whole language barrier.
Yeah.
But there's just something there, like having that third party, like that's great, they can't train, but because you don't train, there's something with the like, I don't know, and maybe it's
punished for it.
Mm-hmm. And that's why people are afraid, so they keep going until they break down.
But that's, I think, a whole culture issue as well, is that we don't have that safe environment where that you feel safe that that's not going to happen, because coaches clearly don't give a damn about this stuff because they're not valuing it themselves. So it's all encompassing, I think, and it takes a lot of work to get to the point where an athlete is comfortable and there's no fear of repercussions. And I think it's largely to do with the relationship between the coaches and the athlete, and that is why I try to help coaches as well, because they have so much power in this dynamic. So we need to make sure, because they've got their own stuff going on. Like, they need to develop their own self-awareness. They need their own mindset tools, all of that type of stuff at the same time.
Okay. Brought up the whole concept of the coach and their reaction to being told, for example, this player can't train today. Do you think that possibly one of the things that's impacting the coach's reaction is the fact that for many coaches, it's not a full-time job, and those few coaches who have got a full-time role coaching or as a head coach have come up through a pathway that's very different to coaching in, say, Europe or the US. Do you think that that may have something to do with the approach that the coach has? Because they've kind of come from not so much, I suppose, coaching as a career.
Mm. Yeah, so I just went to Barcelona, and I went to Joventut Barcelona club, which is a professional club in their first league, and below it they have their under 18s, all their junior programs coming through. I took 4 athletes over there to be immersed in that environment for 8 days to learn from a new coach, to go to a training session where they don't speak the language and to figure that out. Things that I learned when I was 27, they're learning when they're 16. It was incredible. And this club, they do a really good job of developing their players. And I was curious as to how different it was, because it was very, very different to how we do it here. The first question I asked was, do you pay your coaches? And they said, absolutely. Like, I'm talking about under 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s. Yep. Absolutely. Of course we do. We are here to develop athletes and coaches. And if that's our goal, then how could we not look after the coaches? We need to make sure that they're the best quality we can get, because they're going to influence how well we develop the athletes.
Yep.
So that's definitely one part of it. They had coaches coaching up and down so that they were learning and then giving their wisdom to the lower levels at the same time.
Right.
So I do think there's something there in how we treat coaches. And unfortunately, we're resource poor in the WNBL. We're extremely resource poor. So
sure,
we can't pay coaches enough to for it to be full-time. So there might be a bit of a barrier there. You're right. And
the other part to this is, do you think the changes that are coming down the pipeline with the WNBL 2.0 as it's being called at the moment, has the potential to be able to shift that?
I think there's going to be a change. I like to think there is. I don't know where we'll go. I think we'll get more viewership, more resources, all of that type of stuff. I would love for that to trickle down into more of this holistic support for athletes. I'm hopeful that it will. But we do need it still can't just be talk. It needs to be an implementation of structure and framework. Otherwise, it is talk.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that. I'm kind of curious because, it seems to me like there's a reset. There is a reset happening with the WNBL, and there's so much more potential now. There's an outlook that, everybody's saying is more professional. There's an outlook that there's a different approach to the sport. It's not so much, I don't like saying this, but there were times when it seemed, when it was under the umbrella of Basketball Australia, that it was a bit of an afterthought in some respects because it wasn't, national high performance. So I'm kind of hopeful that there is going to be this change. I'm interested in hearing the opinions of other people because, you guys were involved in the sport, you played, you've seen it from the inside. How would you go about explaining this to the WNBL 2.0?
I've had some conversations with, the links when I've been involved in them, and there's certainly, it depends who's running it and how interested they are in it, but there's certainly interest, and I think people understand, well, at least they're intrigued as to how we can add this support for athletes, mindset support or holistic well-being. So there is interest. It's just then it then becomes about, well, how do we scale it? How do we integrate it? Those answers are out there. We're not the first people to do it. There's other sporting codes that do it around the world. It just comes back to resources. And if a club wants to pay money for that to happen, if you have a coach who is going to buy into that as well. And so if the league in general, 2.0 is getting more money and players are getting paid more, good. Does that trickle into more mindset support? I don't know. Well, we understand that healthy, happier people are better at their jobs. Whether you're there to win a championship, you want people to perform, you want them to perform at their best, we need to give them proper support. If you want to create a culture, a community that young girls and boys look up to and want to be a part of, how we do that is by having a really nice, strong culture. How we do that is looking after our athletes. The product is the athletes and how entertaining they are and how many people they can draw into a membership to a game to a club. And so we need to support those people who are the drivers of this business.
Okay, so I just want to jump across to the concept of elite athletes and business. You've obviously been talking to businesses. How do you find the receptiveness of organizations to what you do?
Really open, really interested. I think we are so fortunate as athletes. We stand on this platform and it opens so many doors just by saying, I'm an athlete, I've played professional basketball, I'm an Olympian, whatever it is. And so that lights up eyes, and then that opens the doors, opens their ears, and they're really interested in your experiences. Then they're interested in how it can apply to them. And when they understand, which most people do, that it's all the same, and that, sport is about teamwork and leadership and pushing through tough times and all those things, that's a human experience. I think then they're really interested in it. So I think organizations are probably easier than sporting clubs at the moment.
I'm also curious about how both of you as athletes, go about fostering your own positive mindsets. Everybody's got a different approach. So I'm curious to understand how each of you approach it. I'm going to ask you, Britt, first. How do you do it?
I think you have to go through the fire at first a little bit, because when you're young, you're kind of ignorant and you don't care what people say as much. That was my experience. I was probably more confident, but how the longer you live in life, the more fearful you come of things, because you're more aware of your surroundings, of the bad things in the world, whatever. So for me, I was always really confident. When I started to lose it for a bit, or just become angrier or unhappy, I realized it was because who I was listening to had changed over the course of time, of travel. And that's hard, especially if you're an import player, as you know as well, being an import or foreigner, you change a lot. It's rare that you actually get to stay in one country, one team. And even if you're in Australia, you're still changing teams. But so you might have a close friend for a season, then you have to find another support system and another support system, another. But when you're younger, it was, my family and close friends, that believe me, they're the ones that talk to the most. As you grow up, that changed, and that became harder, because I think I started to listen to a little bit more outside noise. I was experiencing more things because I was played for so long, and I didn't retire till 39. But it did get harder almost to shut that out, and you think that would get easier the older you get, because you would have learned. But it just wasn't like that for me. I think there were just, I needed to find that circle again and keep it small, and find out who am I actually talking to and listening to, which is hard, though, when you change teams all the time. So I don't even know if that really answered the question, but it's really like being harsh about who you really trust or not, but then also being vulnerable enough to the whole squad so that you can achieve your goals and create a team culture. Nat, come! I need a framework for my life. I'll hire you.
I can help you.
I know. So what do you got?
I really agree with that. Like, the people that are surrounding you and who you're listening to is everything. Everything is perspective. And I've always found, I think I'm not dissimilar to everyone else, like, I can get so lost in my head about what I think someone thinks of me, or these stories that I make up about myself and how I need to be in the world and blah, blah, blah. And I just, for so long, thought that was true. And I thought that my default was negative and no confidence. And I just didn't know there was another way. There was someone in my life, he's my mentor still, a very close friend, who just ignited that for me. And he was kind of always in my ear, but I didn't really, you got to be open to a message sometimes. So until it was probably after Rio that I really started to lock down on, you know what? I'm miserable. I hate basketball. I'm unhappy. I feel like the ultimate failure. Like, I let my country down, blah, blah, blah. Are you going to keep playing, or are you going to stop? And I was in Germany when I asked myself that question. I was like, if you keep moving away from your family and friends, moving away from the beach, from everything you love, putting yourself in these really hard situations. My sister, probably actually a couple of years ago, she was like, I was complaining about basketball. Are you ever happy in basketball? Like, have you ever enjoyed it? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you always complain about it. Like, there's always one thing that you're complaining about. And it shocked me. I was like, because she's not wrong. She's totally right. I was doing a really poor job of understanding why I was playing and what my why was. And that's kind of what I said before. Like, so the thing that helps me have a positive mindset is, or at least work on it and choose in every moment I can in the day to reframe, right, and let go of those stories, is why I'm showing up or how I want to show up. My intention for this podcast is to be as open and as honest as possible and to share. And hopefully, you know, who knows what can come from that. My intention when I step on the basketball court is to be there for my teammates. I know the actions I need to take to help me be my best or give my best effort out there. And I'll stand there when the national anthem is being played, and I will step into winning the championship, like a little vision of like holding up that trophy. We are the champions is on in the background, like in my head. And that's my intention, is I want to go and I want to win, and whatever I do from there is hopefully leading me there. Understanding that it won't necessarily come true, but that's the way I want to show up. So choosing how I show up is probably the biggest one.
You said something really interesting there, that you used the word intention. I'm curious, and I'll get to the reason why in a second, but I'm curious why you choose and use that word intention.
I can't control what I can't control. I can only control how I show up, and I want to be intentional with it. And that comes from, if I'm not aware of what my motivations are, I'm defaulting to what my brain knows best, which is what's been programmed in me from a very young age and what I've just been living in, like, without realizing it for most of my life. So I want to be conscious of my decision. I don't want to just step onto the court not understanding that I'm putting myself below others and that I'm not confident in myself, because I saw how that plays out on the court in the outcomes that I get very specifically in basketball. So then there has to be another way, a way where, you know, why do I keep making decisions based off of these limiting beliefs and this fear? Like, why can't I choose another way? And I need to be intentional with that. And so when I go and present to a school, I don't know who's going to listen to me. I don't know who's going to walk away being like, that was amazing, it's changed my life. Or who, and there will be people who walk away going, what the heck was she talking about for an hour? Like, she's crazy. I have no idea. So I can't control those things, but I can control and be intentional with how I choose to show up. And that's powerful for me, and I want to hold on to that.
Okay. The reason I was asking is, quite a few years ago, I was working at a company that focused on tools for the mergers and acquisitions industry. And they used to have a program where it was like, this is the book of the month. So they'd sort of say, okay, this is a business book that we want all the staff to read. And one of the books was called Turn the Ship Around. And it's the story of a US Navy submarine commander who basically inherited the worst ship in the fleet and turned the behaviours of the crew around. And one of the things that he put into play was that rather than telling people I'm going to, they would say, I intend to. So that's why I was kind of curious, because his concept was the same sort of thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can't control. There's this whole support system around you. But I intend to do this, which is, you know, what you want to achieve, and that's what you're going to go for. But there's other factors that are outside of your control, and you're basically going, yeah, I'm putting them aside.
Yeah. And even if I intend to, on the most basic level, win a game, and there's all those other factors there, like I might play the worst I've ever played in my life, even though my intention was to like play my best, right?
Yeah.
So you also have to be okay with, you might not get what you want or what you intend or what your intention is. But then there's that next piece of mindset work, and so there's that intention, that where you focus, then how do you keep your focus aligned to what you actually want? And then there's the reflection piece. Are you okay with yourself if you miss 5 layups in a row? Like that, are you okay with yourself if you are exposed in front of everyone? Do you take it out on teammates? Do you let it affect the next thing? Do you feel really bad about who you are? They're all things like, you've got to be okay with it. It might not happen. That's the relationship you have with yourself. The only way to be okay with it is to have a good relationship with yourself and to look at it through the lens of a learner. Yeah. And that's at times going to feel really fun, like a lot. It doesn't feel good at all. But it's that understanding of, I'm going to learn through this, and it's probably where I've learned the best lessons are through those really horrible moments in my life.
Can I piggyback off that? I had one quote that I always had on my phone, and it would pop up like twice a day because sometimes when we do things or say things, it either, even if you think it came out right or you thought you did the right thing, you can't control what other people
might take that as, you might say box out, and they may think you just called them a horrible name, whatever. You might have, said something or done something and the outcome has been not exactly what you wanted, and you're receiving backlash from it, whether that's poor performance, whether that's how you handled a teammate, a coach, or whatever. If you were just trying to explain something, but then they're taking it as this or that. So sometimes you can't control people's responses, critiques, games responses, or backlash. But I always told myself what I would reflect and just say, why did I say this? What was my point to say this? Or why did I do this? And you just have to trust and believe yourself. And I don't remember the exact quote I had, but I had like the last 2 seasons was, ask yourself if your intention was pure and was it right? Was it for selfish reasons? Mm-hmm. Was it just to get attention? Was it to get more playing time? Was it to bring someone else down? If your intention is pure and it was right in the eyes of a wholesome view of, not I'm right, but right by others and to the team, then you can't control the outcome and you can't control what's coming back. It's just going to happen. You're not always going to have the outcome that you wanted. But I always thought that was huge and a good way to reflect. And that would kind of like pop up like, wow, I can't believe this person's mad about this situation, or a teammate. And you're like, well, was I doing it out of the right intention and the right lens? Like that was always really helpful, and moved back like, no, I actually did that. Or, hey, maybe I did that for this. Like I probably need to, sharpen up.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely.
So after that very interesting diversion, let me say, because that was really cool. Nat, for you, you've had a pretty big 2025 so far. You mentioned before going to Barcelona, and you've also had a Sisters in Sport Leadership Day hosted by Asham here in Sydney. Can you just sort of give us a little bit of a rundown on both of those events?
Yeah, I would love to, because I'm so excited about both those opportunities, especially the tour I did of Europe in Barcelona. That it just came about because I work with some athletes quite intensely on their whole skill development, well-being, mindset, everything. And I wanted to give them opportunities to go against bigger bodies, different bodies, to learn from different coaches, and also to do it the way I wanted to do it. So not just go away for a week's training camp and go to the gym and go on the court and get strong and fit and blah, blah, blah. I say that a lot. I wanted to go away the way that I think we should do it, which is incorporate the mindset into it. Make sure these athletes are learning incredibly valuable life lessons. I found a contact and we got immersed into this professional team over in Barcelona who had those, as I was saying, the under 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, they had 20s, and then professional. So it's like a feeder program. And these 4 athletes, they were 16 years old. They went over there, they trained in the morning. They did an hour and a half, a small group individual with a coach. And straight away I was like, this is amazing. They didn't necessarily think that, because got to remember that they don't have my experiences. So this was very uncomfortable for them. They were like, what is this guy getting us to do? It's crazy. But I was watching it like, amazing. You are learning. Your skill development alone right now is just expanding intensely. You're being challenged by this, this European coach who, Britt, I'm sure European coaches are straight up. They tell you how it is, and that's quite confronting for some young athletes, even older athletes. So they had that to deal with, and then they'd go and they'd train with their age equivalent team. Now, again, these teams have been training. They're in the middle of their season. They've got their own plays. They train every day together, and they also don't speak a lot of English. So these kids are in this, just thrown into training, and they just got to figure out the play and the intensity of the drill and do it without really knowing what's going on. So many life lessons and basketball lessons that I then made it a mission, which is why I did it, to help solidify for them. So I would have individual meetings with them. Even if we were just going to dinner, it was my job to make sure that I was creating this safe, welcoming environment for everyone to have this incredible experience while we were away. And we also went to some pro games, and we did a little bit of sightseeing because we're in Europe and that type of stuff. So it was it was incredible for me. And I think the athletes learned so much, but also just had this experience that I never had it I don't know where else they get it. Europe's doing something right in their athlete development. So it's certainly something that I'm going to be trying to do. Like each school holidays is taking a small group of athletes away to be immersed in this type of environment to learn a lot, but also see how we should be doing it. Then I'll jump to Asham with the leadership day, which was the first time that I ran a workshop for so many people that weren't athletes. And a lot of them were athletes, but I wasn't going into it as this is athlete mindset performance. This is goal setting. This is that broader population that I still want to apply these things to. So that was really an incredible opportunity to go to Sydney for that and dip my toe into the water of that side of things. And it was fun and I learned a lot and hopefully we can do a lot more of that.
How many did you have in that session?
There's about 180 young females in that group. Yeah.
So if you're giving and giving and giving and emotional things, that can really wear people down. The first question is, how do you rejuvenate yourself to not get worn down and fill up your cup? And then the second one is, if you bring your frameworks to clubs, especially sport, like elite sport pro, they're already training 2-3 times a day. How do you make this not another team meeting, another task, and they get worn out? Because it is emotional being vulnerable and all that. So how do you fill your cup up? And then how would you suggest teams not look at the framework or whatever as another meeting and another session to get worn out?
Yeah. So how I fill my cup up, I'm really introverted. So it's a challenge, like giving so much energy. I find that there are times where socially I can't go and give in that space. I need to recover. But that trip, those presentations, every time I'm in a one-on-one with an athlete, it's not that hard for me to give because it just feels like it's coming from a place of pure energy, of clean energy, of love on some level. So I know that sounds really like lame, but that genuinely I could give to it all day within reason. Then also the second part to the question, that is the challenge. You're right. It's really hard. I've been that athlete who's like, oh, like another team meeting, or I can't believe they're making us come here to do a media day, whatever it is. So you've got to be smart with it. And I think it's like small touch points. They can have a huge impact. Is it just like seeing the presence of a wellbeing specialist at training, having a little joke with you? Does that make you feel a little more comfortable and feel like there's support there? And then that person being available, should you need them? There's also that part of there would need to be like these programs ran and workshops ran, but trying to fit them in shorter sessions, making it not feel like that huge big commitment. But on some level, it's going to have to be because that's just what it is. Like, I'm sure there was one point when strength and conditioning was like, really? We have to go to the gym? No. So I think that it's a whole culture change that probably actually needs to happen with that.
I don't know. It's hard. Yeah. You have to just line it up with the schedule.
Yeah.
And I think that can be good as long as it's short and sharp and it's not like a free for all, share for all every time. And
no,
where you get worn out and can be more practical of a situation, I suppose.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good if the coach is in there or not in there too, so that they can also take what's said in that room or whatever and extend it out on the court to bring it up.
Yeah. So, like, for an example, if I work with a team now, we have like 3 or 4 sessions throughout their season. So that's not too much really to ask for. And then I'm working and developing on their coach's playbook. So then that coach is in those sessions and then they are upskilled with how to like add a 10-minute mindset training tool or a conversation starter each week so that it's not just these one and dones, because the impact I can have with that is quite limited. So I need a few touch points, and then that coach also needs to be driving the behavior, and I need to help them. Most coaches, some of them are amazing at it already, with that piece as well.
Well, that's why I was going to say, if there are more resources next year to have more people on the staff, that's one good thing about America is that if you have a head coach that understands their vulnerabilities or their weaknesses, you might get a coach that can fill that. You might get another coach that can fill that need. Mm-hmm. So that's not all in one person. There might be all aware of each other's roles and parts. Mm-hmm. One can take the lead on that. I just think if that's ever possible, you need to have more than one assistant for sure. And then just having more of your role with Perth Lynx as well, as the X's and O's, everything goes through. but your priority would still be like, and how do you feel in this situation?
Yeah. And that's then a good organization is going to recruit coaches, and a good head coach is going to recruit coaches to fill those gaps. And that's a really good sign that they get it.
Yeah.
So you talked about young athletes and students, and look, let's be honest, the world's shifted. We're dealing with much more complex environments, a whole lot more stuff going on. Throw social media into the mix as well. What sort of things would each of you impart to younger players, young girls, particularly at that, who are approaching that age where you get the big drop off from sports, 14, 15, 16 age bracket? What sort of advice would you give them?
Well, it's hard because I grew up without that. Like, I didn't have Instagram. I think I had an account or something when I went to Europe. And then I was like, what is this for? Didn't have it. And then I came to Australia and everyone had it. I was like, oh, I better like follow my teammate and like try and reach out and be friendly and whatever. So then I had it. So I don't know. I was seriously just like in my own world. And I think that's what I tell people is like, obviously your circle, who you talk to the most, get in your own world where you have things like up on your wall. Like, this is what you're after, not this distraction. Like, this is what you're doing every single day. If you can somehow fall in love with what it can be, off the court goals or on the court goals, doesn't matter. But I would see it. I like every day I would like fill something in basketball wise and goal wise. And I would just, that's what I was looking at most of the time. So like for me, I just go back to the old school way because I didn't have social media. But my thing would be, you don't have to follow everyone if you do have social media. It's like, follow things that will only be, it's hard because both of our businesses thrive because of social media. So there's obviously something good about it, just like anything though, too much of it, or there's corruption to everything. Just like if you're, whoever you're following, it would have to be almost like check that every Saturday. Who you're following and watching, does it supplement this goal? Does it supplement this one? Does it supplement this or what you're doing in your daily habits? Like, I'm just such a tangible person. Like, if that's not, if you didn't learn, even if you scroll, it's going to happen. People are going to scroll. If you're scrolling for 20 minutes, did you gain anything from that? Or write one thing that you learned from that scroll? I'll let you scroll for 30 minutes. If you got to tell me one thing that you learned, or how do you feel after 30 minutes? It's more like reflection questions. So you can always just write. If you see those questions in front of you or your quotes, it's such a visual, but you can't stop it. Honestly, as time goes on, it's going to be that person's individual choice and the help of mentors or psychs or their circle to monitor that or keep yourself accountable. And it also depends how old they are and their family lifestyle and all that stuff at home. That's what we have to see it.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. I don't know how people are navigating it. Like, I struggled while reading articles written about me before, like, social media was huge. I mean, it was there, but I would be really struggling. And so I think I get it why that age group of young girls is really struggling. I would encourage them to, which took me a long time to do, get clear on that why piece, that driving piece, like when you're clear on that, you can turn the volume of the doubts down. You can push through those tough times, but you also need to have those skill sets to be able to do that. So we need to be creating that safe space where someone can go, a 14, 15, 16-year-old girl can go there and not be afraid to make a mistake and understand that, or have someone there that understands why they might be holding themselves back. It's not because they don't care or they don't want to try. It's because usually they don't feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, then you can't show up as your best. You can't give, you're going to hold back. So we need to be creating those spaces for them, for those people, but we also need to be giving them those spaces to have conversations of exactly what you just said, Britt, about like, who are you listening to? What's your story? What's your perspective? Should you be spending 30 minutes scrolling, or can you kind of put better structures and habits in place? But at the end of the day, if you're not around those conversations, if someone's not having them with you, if you're getting sucked into and drawn into that, it's really hard. And it makes me upset because it can be so amazing. Like, where else could you learn to make a mistake and deal with the feelings that you feel of failure after it? It is a game at the end of the day. It's not life or death. I don't know where else you can learn that. And when young girls are going away from those environments, it's concerning to me. So I think to round that answer up, it's that self-awareness piece, but we need to help people do that. like I was mature 28, 29, when I started to really lock in on that. I think that naturally comes with age, but why can't we start it early? That's why I work with 11-year-olds, just like planting seeds, having pretty, simple conversations, giving them some tools to carry with them, not knowing if it's going to hit home yet, but, showing up with that intention that it will. And yeah.
I think you have to see it, because if you don't see it, you're going to pick up your phone. If you don't see it, you're going to open your computer. You have to have a reminder out there, whether that's a basketball, your mentor's phone number, like seeing it somewhere. I'm old school. Get your posters out. Posters of NSYNC on the wall while you're going to post up Monday, Tuesday, something to where when you lay in bed, you have a choice every time you lay in bed. You're picking up your phone, but you see something, and you're going to choose it every time. But
you got to choose it, yeah.
Yeah, you can't have your goals on your phone. I mean, you can as well. If you're going out, you need to prop up your phone, whatever. But to me, you have to see it. If I see my workout shed out there and I'm staring right at me, I better go do something. Like something so visual of that you want to accomplish every single day. And it can be the framework of that. So it can be, that mentor call, or just writing someone that you trust and their name up. It might comfort you actually just seeing their name, especially as a young girl, trying to find your space in the world and all that stuff. Like seeing is believing, in a sense of creating a safe environment for yourself, especially if you don't have that at home either.
True.
Okay. It's been great. It's been really interesting. First of all, catching up again, because it's been a while, but also having this discussion. You guys have got such great ideas and such great concepts, and giving people tools to be able to deal with the whole concept of wellness and being able to deal with adversity. It was just really great to listen into everything that you guys had to say. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
It's awesome.
Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you get our latest pod. And we really appreciate if we could get a like and a review so we can extend the reach to more listeners. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn.